Welcome back to another episode of Med Talk. Welcome back, Dr. Ramya Vadula.
Thank you.
This is our second time for the second episode. The first episode we did overview of metabolic syndrome. Now, this episode we would like to talk about the medications, diet, lifestyle changes. So, what can you tell us about how important is diet in managing someone's diabetes?
Sure. So, diet in managing metabolic syndrome like diabetes is extremely important. Diabetes is very much a lifestyle disease where what you do is a very important part of how you manage the condition. So, a lot of need for medication can be limited with the important lifestyle changes that people can make. And sometimes, in some cases, some people can even go off medications if they, work with a good lifestyle that incorporates both diet and exercise.
Correct. So, what can you tell us about carbohydrates? Is like a big word.
Yep.
What does that mean for someone's management in diabetes? How important is carbohydrates to avoid?
Sure. So like you said, carbohydrates is a big word. It means a lot of things to a lot of different people. One, carbohydrates are basically made are grains, fruits, and dairy. Those are the three categories of carbohydrates. A lot of people forget that fruits are carbohydrates a lot of the time. They think it's healthy and then they eat lots and lots of fruit. For someone who has diabetes, that may not be the best idea. Now, carbohydrates can be broken down into simple sugars, things that get absorbed very quickly and spike the sugars very quickly, like your simple breads and pastas and white rice and fruit, for example. Some of the more complex carbohydrates are quinoa, millet, ragi, as you say in Telugu, and are some of the important, and dairy is considered a complex carbohydrate, so which means that they take a little bit longer to get absorbed into the bloodstream and won't spike your sugars as quickly. Now, that's the general gist of carbohydrates. A lot of people suffer with it because carbohydrates tend to be a big part of people's culture. India, for example, especially southern India, rice is huge. Northern India, rotis, naans, those are huge. Philippines, Latin culture, rice is also a big part. Asian culture, rice is huge. European culture, breads are huge. So it's very much ingrained into culture, and so people have a hard time kind of understanding and peeling themselves away from it.
Okay, so if someone has diabetes, avoiding simple carbohydrates are better and keep up with the complex carbohydrates, or if you have to have carbohydrates, have complex carbohydrates. Is that the message?
That's pretty much the overall message. It's very important to limit how much simple carbohydrates you consume. Usually if in a rounded plate, you want to keep the simple carbohydrates or any carbs in general to a quarter of the plate. The other quarter should be more protein. Healthy, lean protein, either fish or chicken or turkey or tofu or lentils can also be considered protein for vegetarian. For vegetarian people can be considered a protein. So eggs are also really good, and then a lot of vegetables cooked in any way, shape, or form, just not deep fried. And you want to stay away from the sugary vegetables like potatoes, things that generally grow underground, like corn and peas and beets are also very sugary vegetables. You want to limit the quantity of those.
Okay. What is your advice on someone who wants to eat a fruit who is a diabetic?
Sure.
What do you advise them to eat?
Okay. I tell them that they don't need to completely avoid fruit completely. Berries of any kind tend to be the best fruit that are very antioxidant rich and low in sugar compared to other fruit. Tropical fruit, especially like bananas and mangoes and watermelon, those things to be very high in sugar. So I would say no more than 2 pieces of fruit a day. If it's going to be a whole fruit, it should be no bigger than a tennis ball in the morning or afternoon. If it's going to be loose fruit like grapes or cut fruit like antaloupes or watermelon, you want to limit them to 1 small cup. And potentially eat it with more healthy fats like nuts, or add something else that would limit their absorption into the body very quickly.
So how about half apple or half banana?
Sure. So half apple and half banana as a snack is very acceptable. Maybe you want to pair that with a nut butter like peanut butter or almond butter or something to help with the healthy fat and protein component of them to help ease the sugar into the body.
Okay, wonderful. So can you tell us about the diets? So much talk about diets, keto diet and intermittent fasting diet. Many diets are available online. People get confused and they do the diet and then they change it and their weight and the diabetes get uncontrolled. What do you suggest for those people?
So first I suggest to eliminate the word diet, because when you say I'm dieting for my condition, it means that there is an end goal, that you're going to stop your diet at some point, which is really not the message you want to do for diabetes. It is a lifestyle change, things that you can keep up with in the long term. So what I advise people is that things like intermittent fasting and the keto diet are the two very popular things that people hear about these days. It may not be everybody's cup of tea. For example, if someone's taking insulin for their diabetes, intermittent fasting may not be the best idea because they have the risk of running low sugar. So it really should be catered towards every single person. And what really most of these diets really boil down to, if you look at their bare skeleton, it's really portion controlling and limiting the amount of carbs that they're eating. That's what all of these diets, no matter what they're called, eventually boil down to, is to limit the consumption of carbohydrates, especially simple carbs.
Yeah. So what is the role of herbal products such as cinnamon or ginger or apple cider vinegar? Do they have any role in management of diabetes?
So that's a great question. There's a lot of data out there, especially on Facebook, different groups that people are offering their opinions. So do this, drink apple cider vinegar every morning, your blood sugars will be great. Drink Karela juice is another big one that I hear. Your blood sugars will be good. Add cinnamon to your diet, it'll be great. I do agree. Those kind of spices and stuff have a big role in controlling a lot of health conditions, especially when used as a part of a healthy diet. Again, the key is healthy diet. If you drink Karela juice and go eat a pizza, it's really not going to help. So unfortunately, any of these supplements or these spices are not FDA regulated. There's really no large studies that were done to say, hey, taking this much of this is going to be this effective in lowering your sugars or helping things in the long term. So we don't have that kind of data. But as a part of a healthy lifestyle, they are very good in reducing inflammation and they're very antioxidant rich. We do know those for facts, especially curcumin, which is found in haldi, so turmeric. So they do have important properties as a part of a healthy diet, not alone. They're not magic.
So we talked about diet. Now how about the lifestyle changes? And lifestyle changes means exercise?
Yes, so lifestyle changes basically is the overall term for diet, choices that we make, and definitely how active we are. The general recommendation is that you need, American Diabetes Association says, like 150 minutes of exercise per week. Now, you can be as active as you want. What I usually tell people is to pick something that you're interested in. Don't say that I'm going to join the gym. Usually what happens is people pay for gym membership but never end up going. But if you pick an activity like dance or yoga or tennis or anything that you like that makes you keep moving and active, it's more helpful and better for people to stay in connection with. Exercise has a great benefit for sugars. Even after you're done exercising, your body continues to metabolize and can even lower your sugars up to 3 to 4 hours after you stop exercising. So it's a great thing for the body.
Okay, so 30 minutes, so 150 minutes time, so 5 days is 30 minutes per day. It is not much.
Not much, you're absolutely correct. So that's why we encourage people to exercise as much as we can. Some people say, oh, I did 15 minutes or 20 minutes. Now, really, you want to do definitely more than 30 minutes at a time, because in the first 20 minutes, all you're burning is the sugar that you just put into your body from something you ate or drank for lunch. For example, if you want to move beyond that and burn fat and burn, those extra calories that your people are always looking to lose, you definitely have to continue to exercise for more than 30 minutes, because that's when all the fat burning starts. So the longer you do exercise, the better it would be.
And exercise could be walking, jogging, running,
anything,
swimming, any
Yep.
Any movement should help.
Exactly,
Yeah,
dancing
yeah,
even. So
yeah.
you don't have to join a gym, you don't have to go on a treadmill, you don't have to do things that you don't absolutely like,
yeah.
or dislike. So it could just be a simple brisk walk outside on a nice day, after dinner maybe. Anything that keeps you moving at a good rate that gets your heart pumping a little is good enough.
Do you get a question from your patients that why my blood sugar goes up after exercise? Is that possible?
Oh, that is a very common question that I hear, and that happens when the exercise is very intense in a short period of time. If the person goes for a big sprint in like 5 minutes, where their body is extremely active, all the big muscles are activated, they require a lot of sugar to be released from your body and to be used. So that actually can cause a spike in sugar. Which, it's very surprising to people because exercise is supposed to bring things down. So the type of exercise that eventually burns and sustains the sugar is basically low intensity exercise that you would do for a long period of time, like a brisk walk for 30 minutes or something. That will keep the blood sugars even, won't spike it, and will actually continue to metabolize over the next hour to 4 hours. So yeah, brisk, like intense exercise causes a spike in sugar just because the body needs it, and the insulin response may not be there to lower the sugar appropriately. So people, when they check their sugar after intense, quick exercises, they will see a spike.
So we talked about diet and exercise. If someone's sugar does not control with the lifestyle modifications, what is the next step for them? Do you advise them to start on medication? What is the cutoff limit to put them on medication?
Sure. So diet and lifestyle are always going to be a foundation of any type of medical condition, especially metabolic conditions like diabetes. That is the clear foundation that's never going to change, that always has to be a part of no matter what you do, whether with or without medication. But after a person has given it a good try for about at least 3 months, and then their blood sugar control is not improving in any way, that would be a good time for us to draw a line and say, hey, maybe there's more factors in play here, like genetics, which unfortunately we cannot change at this point, to say we may need some help with some medication. And it could be, as simple as a pill to something a little bit more involved.
Yeah. So medications, in our general practice, patients complain that medications has side effects. I get muscle pain, I get dizziness, many side effects. They complain about the side effect. How do you tackle those
Sure.
patients?
I mean, I definitely acknowledge that medications do have side effects, in their effort to help us. It's just the nature of what we have available to us. But at the same time, I pose a question: how healthy are you going to be if your blood sugars are in the 200s and 300s, and you don't take the help of medication because you're concerned about the side effects? What about the side effects from the very uncontrolled blood sugars? They have tons of side effects too. So, I remind people about that issue, and then we work with the medications it's appropriate for the patient, discuss the side effects, and decide what we're willing to take and willing to not take. And make a team effort plan, and that's usually what diabetes is about. It's like a team effort between the patient, the doctor, and their support team, whether it be their family at home, their nutritionist, their exercise coach. It's a team effort.
So do you put some new patients, type 2 diabetic, straightly on insulin because their sugar is not controlled with?
Yeah, in some cases, that would be an initial start, because if the person's blood sugars are super high, like they're in 400s or 300s, the pancreas won't work well because it's in a state of shock from seeing such high sugar. So to basically ease them out of that toxic range and get their body to working again, sometimes we do have to use insulin as the initial treatment to bring everything down. And I always tell the person that, hey, this is what we have to do now. That doesn't mean that you still have to do this forever. And, with the appropriate lifestyle changes, as we talked about, we can definitely get them off sometimes based on what their particular diabetic issue is.
So the insulin can be stopped and they can continue with the oral medications if need be later on?
Not for everybody,
Not everybody.
But in some cases, absolutely, that can be done, and that has been done. But in some situations, depending on the type of diabetes that they have, they can either decrease their requirements, but they may not be able to get off. But in some cases, they're able to get off. It's very person specific.
Do you see any taboo of patients taking insulin?
Oh, absolutely. Insulin, especially in the Indian culture and in specific Latin cultures, is the end all of everything. People get really nervous, like, oh my gosh, I'm taking insulin now, it must be the end. I must be really diseased and dying. But that's really not how I encourage people to look at it. Now, if your specific genetic condition is that your particular insulin doesn't work, the medicine that you need is insulin, as opposed to the 4 or 5 pills that you can be put on and still not have very good control. So it is a medicine. And that's what I encourage people to look at it as. It's not an end game, it's just simply what your body needs to get better. So
who should they listen in the care or management of the diabetes, and when do they see the endocrine specialist?
Well, I would recommend that any primary care doctors or patients who are vigilant about their labs, if their fasting blood sugars are above 100, or if they're told that they have prediabetes but don't worry about it, or if their random blood sugars are greater than 200, definitely encourage them to have a consultation, get on the bandwagon as soon as possible, because the data clearly shows that the earlier you tackle it, the less side effects you will have going forward.
So where do our viewers get more resources on diabetes, metabolic syndrome, or other chronic conditions which require diet, lifestyle modification, etc.? Where do they get resources from?
Sure. Really important resources that are very patient friendly can be found on the American Diabetes Association or the Endocrine Society. They're both very great for patient information and are full of resources. I would say to go to those trusted locations instead of opinions of people that can be posted all over the internet just by a Google search.
Sure. So what is your take-home message for our viewers regarding their diabetes, their prevention, some helpful other tips? Can you share with our viewers?
Sure. So basically what I want everybody to understand that is diabetes treatment and control is a big team effort between the patient and the physician mainly. Because the patient has to play a role in their own control by doing these lifestyle changes that we talked about with the diet and exercise, and have to put their best foot forward to help themselves and their doctor limit the need of medications that they need to get the best control and live a good, healthy life.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for the wonderful information on metabolic syndrome, diabetes management, diet, exercise, lifestyle changes, and some helpful tips for our viewers to apply in their daily life to their management of chronic disease like diabetes. So thank you so much for your time and effort. Thank you for coming back to this second time. Appreciate all your guidance and support to this wonderful program.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here and share some of my insights. Thank you.